Welcome to Sister Wives Twist. The sunlight streamed in through the skyscraper windows of Robyn Brown's immaculate Arizona house, amber light spilling over gleaming granite countertops and quiet hallways. To the rest of the world, it appeared to be a fantasy: leather rugs, intricately carved wood, a vision of perfection. But in there, that house was no longer a home. It was no longer a refuge. It was a fortress of silence, where secrets breathed more boldly than laughter. This was not an ordinary day at the Brown home. Something had cracked. Something delicate had broken, and no apology, no therapy session, no half-hearted attendance could repair it. Audiences were not simply witnessing fissures in the family anymore. They were watching the breakdown. The cameras captured it all: the cold stares, the silence that was louder than words, the unwritten barriers no one was willing to cross. And in the middle of it all was Robyn. Formerly viewed as the sensitive, subservient wife, now she stood out, exposed, vulnerable, and to others, perilously manipulative. Kody Brown, the once authoritative patriarch, was disintegrating. No longer the assertive leader of a polygamist empire, he was now a shadow of his former self, seething with rage, attempting apologies that sounded insincere, telling stories written less in reality and more in self-protection. And so, one thing plagued every moment: was Robyn behind the family's collapse, or another victim of Kody's out-of-control chaos? Were her tears real or ammo? Was she the beloved wife or the most feared? And the most unsettling question of all: what if this collapse wasn't an accident to begin with, but all along part of the plan? This isn't another Sister Wives update. This is the unvarnished, uncut untangling of a family empire, constructed upon sacrifice, compromise, and backroom betrayals spoken behind closed doors. Here, we lift the veil. The smiles concealing manipulation, the strategy-laden confessions, the heartbreak suffocating every goodbye. And it did not all occur at once. It started quietly, in missed family gatherings, in voices that bore new inflections, in confidences that spoke of things unsaid. What began as ripples grew into tidal waves, until the very foundation of the Browns started to break. Robyn's tears, once interpreted as sorrow, came to appear differently. Less sad, more tactical. Every meltdown questioned whether this was mourning or whether it was a means of control. And in her spotless kitchen, sunlight deliberately arranged across marble surfaces, she stood still, holding a mug she'd not touched all morning. Her gaze didn't fall on the sunrise. It pierced through it, seeking what was already lost. Janelle's voice hadn't reached her ears in days. Christine's name hadn't been mentioned in weeks. Mary was a specter, even in her own narrative. And loneliness wasn't only among the wives, it was within Kody himself. His loud, booming voice had become bitter, his boastful speeches diminished to gaslighting, his sermons on unity translated into paranoia and resentment. "You don't know what it's like," he growled in one confession, jaw locked, hands twitching as if trying to hold on to something already slipping away. "Everyone abandoned me. Robyn is the only one who stayed." But staying doesn't always mean loyalty. Sometimes, it just means survival. Behind the scenes, Kody's desperation intensified. In one instant that no one would ever forget, he had it out with a producer off-screen, his voice shaking, his orders clipped. "You can't broadcast that, that's not what happened." But the video told another tale. Too raw, too dangerous, too revealing. What did those cameras record that he was so desperate to hide? A confrontation between Mary and Robyn that never made the air. A phone conversation revealing a leak to the tabloids. Or perhaps an email, long buried, with one question that could rewrite history. What if it's just me and Kody left standing? Those words, innocent on the surface, would ring with a heavier tone. Betrayal had started to seep into every aspect of the Brown family. One instant in particular altered everything, changing the way followers perceived this once close-knit family. It was late. The cameras were just starting to roll. Somewhere out of frame, a producer's chair groaned, and there sat Janelle by herself in the Flagstaff rental, arms crossed, fatigue etched across her face. Her eyes weren't puffy from weeping, her eyes were puffy from bottling it all up. "Everybody thinks I'm okay with this," she growled low. "But I'm not. I was never okay with being expendable." She wasn't referring to Kody. She was referring to the show, the masterfully edited narrative that had trapped her into secrecy for so long. But that evening, the dam burst. Janelle had had enough of playing along. And Christine's departure, What had seemed so tidy by now seemed sullied. Had it been her decision or was she shoved? Viewers parsed frame by frame online, screenshot by screenshot. Christine's tense stares, Robyn's evasive responses, Kody's conflicting accounts of what happened. And then came the voicemail. It was recorded by mistake, a mic left on while a break was being called. Outside, Kody's voice sliced through the darkness, hard, low, angry. "Spin this, Robyn. She knows we have to spin this. You assured me this would never get out." The web went ablaze. What was Christine covering up? And why was Robyn handling the fallout? Money, property deeds, or something more personal, something close to the children themselves? Suddenly, past episodes were proof. Robyn insisting on constant documentation. Kody distancing himself from Gabriel and Garrison. Even Aurora's on-set panic attack was anxiety or something provoked by a much larger storm. And then there was the breaking point. Mary, who had long hovered in the background, finally cracked. On a reunion taping, unscripted and raw, she stood up during filming, mic still live, and addressed Robyn directly. "You schemed this," she yelled. "You sat back and watched him fall apart, and you referred to it as love. You weaponized your tears, Robyn, and now we're all destroyed except for you." The room froze. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. Robyn stood motionless, hands trembling, not in fear, but as if realizing the facade had finally cracked. Her usual polished answers failed her. The silence after Mary's words was heavier than anything she could have said. Mary stormed off stage, but her mic was still on. "I was a fool to remain, a fool to believe he'd return. But the greatest betrayal wasn't even Kody, it was all of you supporting him." That footage, unedited, raw, leaked online in a matter of days, and it rattled the fanbase to its very foundation. Mary Unfiltered trended. Fans called for TLC to air the unedited footage. Forums flared like crime boards, picking apart body language, interpreting silences, rewatching previous seasons with new eyes. Then Christine made the bombshell announcement. Frustrated with producers manhandling her narrative, she gave a handwritten entry from her diary to a third-party YouTube interviewer. It was not meant to be released, but when it was read aloud on air for a few sentences, the internet blew up. "I saw Robyn and Kody in a parking lot in 2014. They were arguing. I couldn't hear what was said, but it was the first time I ever saw him cry for her, not us. That's when I knew he never loved us the same. He just pretended." Fans were stunned. The family chronology, previously thought to be natural, now seemed staged. Every step, every baby, every home from hindsight, a part of Kody's changing devotion. And then Janelle, who had largely remained composed, made her most biting confession yet. During a live Q&A, a viewer posted, "Do you think Robyn manipulated your marriage too?" Janelle hesitated. She swallowed hard, then she nodded. "Yes, at first no. But after Vegas, after the move, everything changed. She began to withdraw Kody from us. She made us the villains for refusing to be submissive." That word, submissive, hit home like a dagger. At that moment, the guise of equality broke. The wives were never equals. They were never peers. They were pawns on a board, and by accident or by intent, Robyn had become the queen. TLC attempted a recovery, putting out slick statements regarding editorial integrity and respecting family privacy. But it was too late. The internet had already torn the curtain down. The clips came flooding back, Kody yelling at Christine, Robyn sobbing at well-timed moments, Mary eating dinner alone as the rest of the family joked together. Even moderate viewers could spot it now. This wasn't a spiritual quest anymore. It was a war zone of feelings. Under growing criticism, Kody finally spoke about the mayhem in an Instagram live. His hair was disheveled, his eyes downcast with remorse, or was it stress? He leaned into the camera, his voice barely above a whisper. "You don't know what went on backstage, you only get to see cuts. We lived chaos." And then the slip. "We were never meant to be equal. That was a lie we told ourselves." And that one sentence triggered. Comment sections imploded. Memes overlaid his words in capital letters. TikTok filled with re-edits of family moments, now recast as manipulation, favoritism, neglect. Robyn remained silent for a time, but when she finally emerged on a podcast, her voice had changed. No crying, no shaking voice, just flat, deliberate words. I attempted to love all of them, but I will not apologize for loving Kody the way he required. If that makes me the bad guy, so be it. It was as close to admitting her plan as she came. Christine was not coy. In her own livestream, snuggled up alongside her fiancé David, she laughed acidly. Robyn says she loved us. That's rich. You don't love someone by redefining their past. You don't love by eliminating their suffering just to preserve your own comfort. This was no longer staged drama. This was bare, and in the middle of it all the children. The older children, Logan and Madison, pulled back silently, declining to give interviews. But Robyn's children were in the maelstrom. Aurora, delicate on camera. Dayton, sharing cryptic messages online. The truth needs to come out. The message was gone in minutes, but the fans had already snapped it up. What truth? What hadn't the cameras revealed? Behind the scenes, there was chaos at TLC. Executives freaked out. Meetings mounted. Ratings were through the roof, but credibility was in tatters. Whispers floated of a whistleblower, a crew member prepared to release incriminating documents. Off-mic admissions, unedited footage, instructions from above. And then Janelle shared one photo. No explanation, just a caption, "Silence is not always peace." Christine replied with 3 red hearts. Mary liked it in minutes, but Robyn and Kody, nothing. Then the earthquake hit, a leaked TLC production memo. It went viral on Reddit. Supposedly internal, it exposed the playbook, minute-by-minute instructions on how to shape the Browns for ratings. Robyn, sympathetic. Christine, confrontational. Mary, tragic but cold. Janelle, the quiet rebel. The reality landed like a punch. Viewers' worst fears realized. Sister Wives was staged. Each wife turned into a character. The backlash was immediate. Old-time viewers turned critics overnight. TikTokers broke down old shows, superimposing the leaked memo as a script, and it synced frame by frame. The Browns could no longer hide. Christine went to YouTube. No music, no slick editing, just her, sitting on a couch, clutching nothing but the truth. Her voice was firm, but her eyes overflowed with tears. Years ago, I pleaded with them. Let us give them the real us. Not only the fights, not only the drama, but they never did. They wanted a villain, and I played along for a while, but I'm finished now. Christine's words, raw and steady, ignited like wildfire. Her video soared past 3 million views in a single day. Kody couldn't stay quiet. From inside his car, hair disheveled, face lined with frustration, he snapped into his phone camera. We all signed up for this. Don't play the victim now. You cashed those checks just like I did. But in place of defense, it seemed like deflection, and the internet descended. Checks don't excuse betrayal. Classic victim blaming. Robyn's silence speaks louder than all your rants. And then, out of the darkness, Leon Brown re-emerged. In a grainy Instagram video, their words had the weight of years. None of us got to choose this story. It was chosen for us. Some escaped. Others became the story. It was the final thread that unraveled the Brown family tapestry. And with every hour, the foundation of Sister Wives, the show and the family alike, thinned thinner and thinner. But nothing compared to what followed. One evening late, a mysterious audio leak appeared on YouTube, careening like wildfire on Reddit and X. It was Kody's voice, bare, unmasked. They're all just resentful, he growled. Christine wanted out, okay, but now she plays victim. Janelle checked out years ago. Mary wants us to know she hung in there for fame. And Robyn, she's the only one who never betrayed me. The internet blew up, #Kody masked. Team Christine. TikTok burned with speculation. Who leaked the tape? A producer, a relative, possibly even one of Kody's own kids. Janelle did not hesitate. In a scorching response, her eyes blazed with anger. Let's discuss bitterness, Kody. Let's discuss single parenting while you had a separate residence. Let's discuss loyalty because I gave you decades and you offered me excuses. And then at last, Robyn had her say. No tears, no shaking, only weariness honed to rage. I did try to be quiet. I did try to protect the family, but we're not all innocent. Don't pretend like I orchestrated this. I lost a family too. That phrase, I lost a family too, rang out like a crack of thunder. For the first time, everyone considered, was Robyn actually the mastermind, or simply another victim? Then came the coup de grace. TLC issued a statement, corporate, carefully worded, cold. At this time, we are reevaluating the future direction of Sister Wives. Our priority remains the safety and integrity of all individuals involved. We thank our viewers for over a decade of support. It wasn't renewal, it wasn't cancellation, it was a pause, a heartbeat of silence that spoke volumes without speaking a word. Afterward, the wives started creating their own trajectories. Christine's food channel blew up with new subscribers. Janelle started a podcast, unscripted, promising, no producers, no editing, just honesty. Mary spoke openly for the first time about therapy and finding her voice again. Kody, however, disappeared. His final Instagram story, a black screen with white letters, sometimes silence is the only defense. Silence didn't save him. In a shocking interview, Dr. Julia Marks, a former therapist of the Browns, off-camera, broke her silence. I saw them disintegrate before me. The show didn't break them. It showed us what was already broken. And so the question still hung. Was Sister Wives ever real to begin with, or was it all along a reflection of the dysfunction in plain sight? As the dust finally settled, one image remained. Mary proceeding down the vacant corridors of her home, not as a specter, not as the overlooked wife, but as a woman at last entering into herself. Her footsteps echoed as punctuation points, separating a tale once composed in silence, now redrawn in her own voice. The wall pictures, once reminders of a family who had the courage to challenge tradition, now resembled pieces of a lovely lie. Mary did not hate them, she did not even resent them, but what she could no longer do was pretend. She had been the pillar, the initial wife, the cornerstone, the silent fighter. But on her porch, Mary came to understand that the weight she bore all these years had a title: loyalty. And that loyalty had chipped away at her voice until it was hardly hers anymore. Across town, Christine stood in the backyard of her house, looking at the vacant space where her children used to play. She envisioned a future based on sisterhood, dinners shared, birthdays shared, laughter that made every room ring. What was left to her was the devastation of a shattered tribe. And under it all, one harsh reality: they had spent years orbiting a man who confused obedience for love. Christine had fled, yes, but the chains still clanked in her nightmares. Janelle, too, sat with sorrow. It wasn't just losing a son by losing Garrison. It was losing one of the few stable constants left to her. Leafing through an old memory book, she breathed softly into the silence. How did we get here? She wasn't crying for Kody alone. She was crying for the illusion. And then there was Robyn, still holding on, still keeping the hope alive that the family could still be saved, but even she could not stem the tide. The gossip, the DMs, the tell-all video clips picked apart like evidence from a crime scene, none of them made her look like a peacemaker anymore. To the world, she was no longer the glue, she was the executioner. Kody, the erstwhile patriarch, now resembled more of a specter of the man he once was. Defensive, cornered, repeating himself in interviews. But the secret was already out, and there was no spin that could erase it. And behind the scenes, TLC's cameras continued to roll. Quiet, patient, documenting a legacy disintegrating strand by strand, admission by admission. And even the cameras did not capture all. An off-the-record email leaked, never intended to see the light of day. A producer cautioned executives, "We've created a monster we can no longer control. The Brown family is imploding, and the viewer can't turn away." What happens when reality TV turns real? Conjecture went into overdrive. Was Kody being ousted? Was Mary writing a memoir? Was Christine negotiating a spin-off of her own? And then, in the dead of night, Janelle released a mysterious Instagram story, a black background and one line. It was never about polygamy, it was always about power. In minutes it was gone, but not before screenshotters. Forums broke down, subreddits locked. TLC discreetly deleted entire collections of old episodes. Something was going on. And then the twist. In a shocking reveal, TLC announced a new show, Sister Wives, The Fallout. No premiere, no cast announcement, just the trailer voice muttering a haunting threat. Some stories don't end, they shatter. As viewers prepared for the most explosive installment yet, one thing was certain: this drama wasn't over. It was just getting started. And as morning broke over Flagstaff, sunlight filtered through homes that had once been filled with laughter and love. Now those walls resonated with silence, shadows, and questions that might never be answered. Mary stood inside her bed and breakfast, gazing out at the barren horizon. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, the glow of a message lighting up the room. "Hope you're okay, let's talk soon." From Kody. She stared at it, motionless. Minutes, maybe hours, before finally locking the screen. No reply. Across Coyote Pass, the land stretched wide and empty, once promised as a dream, now a graveyard of broken plans. Janelle drove there alone. Wind battered through her hair as she followed the wooden stakes demarcating land that had never been constructed. From the pocket of her jacket, she drew a creased, coffee-brown map. Every square had been a dream for her children. Now it seemed like specters. Garrison's memory slammed into her with a crashing wave. She sat down in the grass, hand against her chest, speaking his name into the quiet. In Utah, Christine stood in her kitchen flipping pancakes with a crew of cameras surrounding her. The air was peaceful, but her eyes had a storm brewing. Truly sat in a different room, mute. A producer interrupted the silence with a question. "What do you think of Robyn's recent comments on the tell-all?" Christine's spatula quivered in her hand as she breathed. "She didn't just steal Kody, she stole our future, and now she's expecting sympathy." In Arizona, Robyn perched on her kitchen island, hands clasped around a cold cup of tea. Behind her, pacing with papers, legal papers, not property deeds, not business, Mary's formal firing. "They think I won," Robyn whispered, her voice cracking. "But this doesn't feel like winning." It was then that Solomon burst into the room, sobbing. "Why are people so upset with us?" Robyn was frozen in place. Kody knelt, attempting to soothe his son, but the harm had already been done. Their kids were growing up living a narrative they had never agreed to. Back at TLC headquarters, there was a producer who sat in the dimly lit editing room, screening clips from all 4 tell-all episodes. An assistant leaned over and asked her very quietly, "Are we getting a season 20? The producer did not even glance up. "If we do, it'll be the last. There's nothing left to hide, only fallout." The screen went black. Then Christine's voice came through, raw and level. "Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free, it burns everything down, but even from the ashes you can rebuild." And like that, the saga changed, not a finale but a beginning. The Browns' tale wasn't over, it was just getting darker, more complicated, and truer than ever. So, if you've been addicted by the twists and the betrayals, give us a like if you're Team Wives. Subscribe so you don't miss the next incendiary update. And tell us in the comments, who do you think is going to win? Stay curious, stay skeptical, and as always,